there was a time when life stopped feeling alive. Abby smiled in front of people. Deep inside, I was quietly falling apart. Every night felt heavier than the last. The silence in my room sounded louder than my thoughts, and honestly, I had started believing that maybe love was never meant for someone like me. Then, you came into my life, not with noise, not with promises, but with a kind heart, gentle words, and a love that slowly touched the broken parts of my soul. My future wife. You didn't just love me when I was strong, you found me when I was emotionally exhausted, when my world was collapsing. And somehow, you stayed. You became the peace I couldn't find alone, the light that reached me in my darkest moments, and without even realizing it, you saved me. This speech is not just about love, it's about the woman who gave my life meaning again. Woman who taught me that even damaged hearts still deserve to be loved. There was a time in my life when everything around me looked normal. But inside me, everything was collapsing. I woke up every morning carrying a heaviness I couldn't explain. The kind of pain that doesn't leave bruises on your skin, but leaves scars somewhere deep in your soul. People saw me smiling sometimes. They heard me laugh in conversations. But none of them knew how exhausted I truly was. None of them knew how many nights I spent staring at the ceiling, silently asking myself how much longer I could keep pretending to be okay. Life has a strange way of breaking a person slowly. Not all at once, not dramatically. Sometimes it happens quietly. You lose excitement first, then peace, then sleep, then eventually, parts of yourself. And that's exactly what happened to me. I became emotionally numb. Days started blending together. I stopped looking forward to anything. Even the things I once loved stopped feeling alive to me. I was surrounded by noise but somehow felt completely alone inside my own mind. The hardest battles are the ones nobody can see. You walk through crowded places while feeling empty. You answer messages while fighting tears behind your eyes. You sit by people who care about you, yet still feel disconnected from the world. And honestly, I had gotten so used to surviving that I forgot what it felt like to truly live. Then one day, you entered my life, not loudly, not dramatically. You didn't arrive trying to save me. You simply arrived with kindness. And sometimes kindness is powerful enough to rescue a soul that has been drowning in silence for too long. I still remember the way you spoke to me in those early moments. Soft, calm, genuine. There was something about your energy that made me feel safe without even understanding why. You never forced conversations. Never demanded attention. Never tried to impress me, yet somehow your presence alone started calming storms inside me that had been raging for years. You know what's beautiful about real love? It doesn't always heal you instantly. Sometimes it heals you quite quietly. By peace. And that's exactly what your love did to me. You never saw me as a burden, even during the moments when I felt emotionally damaged. You treated me like someone worth understanding, worth listening to, worth loving. That changed something inside me, because when a person spends too much time feeling broken, they eventually begin to believe they are unlovable. I had reached that point. I thought my sadness made me difficult to love. I thought my emotional scars would push everyone away eventually. I thought people only loved the happy versions of others. The strong versions. The easy versions. But then you came into my life and loved me during the season when I was hardest to love. And I'll never forget that. You listened to things I struggled to explain. You noticed changes in my voice before I even admitted something was wrong. You cared about my silence, not just my words. You understood pain that I tried so hard to hide from the world. That kind of love is rare. Very rare, because most people only stay when life feels convenient, but you stayed during the messy chapters too. You stayed when my heart felt heavy. You stayed when I became distant. You stayed when I doubted myself. You stayed when I had nothing beautiful to offer except honesty and emotional exhaustion, and maybe that's when I realized. You were becoming home to me, not a place, not a person I simply loved, but home, the kind of home where a tired soul can finally rest before you. I spent so much of my life feeling emotionally homeless. I wandered through days carrying loneliness that words could never fully describe. I learned how to hide pain behind humor. I learned how to comfort others while secretly falling apart myself. I became the person who checked on everyone else, because deep down, I understood what it felt like when nobody checks on you. but then you started checking on me. And it sounds simple. But trust me, when someone has spent years feeling invisible emotionally, being genuinely cared for feels life-changing. You made me feel seen, not for the image I showed the world, but for the person underneath all the walls. You saw exhaustion in my eyes, even when I said I was fine. You heard sadness hidden between my jokes. You noticed the loneliness I buried beneath fake strength, and instead of walking away from those broken parts of me, you held them gently. I don't think you'll ever fully understand what that did to my heart, because people don't realize how healing love can be, until they experience a love that asks for nothing except honesty. You never made me feel weak for struggling emotionally. You never mocked my sadness. You never treated my pain like an inconvenience. You gave me something I didn't even know I needed. Emotional safety. And once a person feels emotionally safe after years of emotional chaos, they begin healing in ways they never imagined possible. Little by little, life started feeling lighter again. Not perfect, but lighter. I started smiling genuinely, sometimes instead of forcing it. I started sleeping better. I started laughing without immediately feeling empty afterward. I started finding small reasons to stay hopeful, and all of that happened because of the way you loved me. A gentle love can change a person's entire world. People talk a lot about grand romantic gestures. But honestly, the deepest kind of love exists in small moments. The way you asked if I ate today, the way you noticed when my energy changed, the way your voice softened whenever I sounded emotionally tired, the way you stayed patient with me during days when my mind felt heavy, the way you made me feel important without ever trying too hard. Those little things healed parts of me nobody else could reach. You loved me with consistency. And consistency is one of the rarest forms of love in this generation, because people nowadays disappear so easily, but you didn't disappear, you remained, and your presence slowly became medicine for my soul. There were nights when I felt emotionally overwhelmed and didn't even know how to explain what I was feeling. My thoughts became too loud, my heart became too tired. Everything inside me felt tangled and dark. Yet somehow, hearing your voice calmed me down, not because you magically solved my problems, but because your love reminded me that I didn't have to carry everything alone anymore. That matters more than people realize. Life becomes less frightening when you finally meet someone who stays beside you during your storms, instead of only showing up for your sunshine. You loved me during the chapters where I barely loved myself. That's something I'll carry in my heart forever, because self-hatred as a person, it makes compliments feel unbelievable, it makes happiness feel temporary, it makes love feel suspicious. And for a long time, I struggled to believe I deserved the kind of care you gave me. Part of me kept waiting for you to leave too. I know that sounds sad, but pain teaches people to expect abandonment. When enough people disappoint you, your heart starts preparing for loss before happiness even fully arrives. So yes, sometimes I became distant, sometimes I overthought things, sometimes I questioned whether someone as kind as you could truly stay, but every single time my fears tried convincing me that love never lasts. You proved them wrong through your actions. Not through empty promises, through presence. And presence is powerful. You taught me that love is not always about finding someone perfect. Sometimes love is finding someone patient enough to sit beside your brokenness without trying to make you feel ashamed of it. You never rushed my healing. You never pressured me to become emotionally perfect overnight. You allowed me to heal at my own pace. That kind of patience saved me in ways words cannot fully explain, because healing is ugly sometimes. People romanticize healing on social media, like it's some beautiful peaceful journey, but real healing is painful. It's confronting memories you tried to bury. It's crying over wounds you thought you already moved on from. It's feeling emotionally exhausted while trying to rebuild yourself again, and during that difficult process, you loved me anyway. You loved the version of me that still carried sadness. You loved the version of me that struggled with overthinking. You loved the version of me that sometimes became quiet because emotions felt too heavy to express. You loved me before I fully healed. That's real love, not loving someone only after they become easy to handle, but loving them while they're still learning how to survive. their pain. There were moments I looked at you and silently wondered how someone with such a gentle heart could exist in such a cold world. You made kindness feel real again, and honestly, I think you restored my faith in humanity a little too. Before you, I became emotionally guarded. I stopped trusting easily. I stopped expecting people to stay. I stopped believing that genuine connection still existed. But your soul felt different. You loved without manipulation. You cared without conditions. You stayed without making me beg for consistency. And slowly, you taught my heart how to feel safe again. Do you know how rare that is? To meet someone who calms your nervous system instead of disturbing it. To meet someone whose presence feels peaceful instead of confusing. To meet someone who doesn't make love feel like emotional warfare. That's what you became to me. Peace, pure peace. And after spending years emotionally drowning inside my own mind, peace felt like a miracle. I remember nights when we talked for hours, and somehow my problems didn't feel as heavy afterward. Not because life suddenly became perfect, but because love has a strange power to make pain easier to carry. You became my safe place during seasons where everything else felt uncertain. And maybe you don't realize this, but there were moments your existence genuinely kept me going. Moments when I felt emotionally drained beyond words. Moments when life felt meaningless. Moments when loneliness became unbearable. And then I'd think about you, your smile, your voice, your heart. How the darkness inside me softened a little. That's how deeply you touched my soul. You gave me emotional strength without even trying. You reminded me that love still exists in this world in its purest form. Not performative love, not temporary love, not selfish love. But real love, the kind that protects, the kind that listens, the kind that heals, the kind that stays gentle. Even after seeing someone's pain, up close, I used to think strength meant hiding emotions. Pretending everything was fine, carrying pain alone, never asking for help. But then your love taught me something beautiful. Real strength is allowing yourself to be vulnerable with someone who genuinely cares, and for the first time in years, I stopped feeling ashamed of my emotions around you. I stopped pretending all the time. I stopped hiding every wound, because your love never made me feel weak for hurting. You held my truth carefully, and honestly. That healed me more than you'll ever know. Sometimes I think about who I was before you entered my life. A tired soul, a lonely heart, a man quietly fighting battles nobody could see. And then I think about who I started becoming after loving you. Softer, calmer, hopeful again. You brought warmth back into places inside me that had gone emotionally cold for years. You reminded me that life can still feel beautiful after pain. You reminded me that hearts can heal. You reminded me that love is capable of saving people in ways medicine and words sometimes cannot, because some wounds aren't physical, some wounds exist deep within the soul. And your love reached those hidden places inside me. I know nobody is perfect, not me, not you, not any relationship, but what made your love special was the sincerity behind it. You cared genuinely, and genuine love is becoming harder to find in a world filled with temporary connections. Nowadays people leave so quickly. The moment things become emotionally difficult, they run. The moment someone struggles mentally, they disappear. The moment life becomes inconvenient, they stop trying. But you stayed patient with my heart. You chose understanding instead of judgment. You chose compassion instead of distance. And because of that, you became one of the most important people in my life. Not because you rescued me like some fairy tale hero, but because your love gave me strength to rescue myself. That's what true love does. It doesn't control you. It reminds you of your worth until you finally start believing in yourself again. And little by little, that's exactly what happened to me. I started seeing beauty in life again. Music sounded meaningful again. Sunsets felt comforting again. Laughter felt real again. I stopped feeling emotionally disconnected from the world all the time. Because your love slowly brought my soul back to life. I think people underestimate how deeply emotional loneliness affects a person. When someone feels as emotionally abandoned for too long, they begin shrinking inside themselves. They stop expressing emotions honestly. They stop expecting comfort. They stop believing anyone will truly understand them. That was me before you. I became emotionally silent, but your love, Made me speak again, not just with words, with feelings, with honesty, with vulnerability, and that changed everything. For the first time in years, I felt emotionally understood, not fixed, not judged, understood. And sometimes being understood heals more than advice ever could. You gave me the kind of love that felt peaceful at 2 a.m., the kind of love that feels safe during anxiety, the kind of love that makes painful days survivable, the kind of love that reminds broken people they are still worthy of tenderness. That's why I say, you saved my soul, because you truly did, not through perfection, but through sincerity. You loved me consistently enough that eventually my heart stopped expecting abandonment every second. You cared deeply enough that eventually I stopped feeling invisible emotionally. You stayed long enough that eventually my soul's safe was possible again. That matters more than words can describe, and, honestly, I wish more people understood how powerful gentle love can be. The world already gives people enough pain, enough disappointment, enough emotional exhaustion. What people truly need is softness, understanding, patience, compassion. And you gave all of that to me naturally, without forcing it, without pretending. You became light during one of the darkest seasons of my life. There were days when I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself emotionally. I felt drained, lost, spiritually exhausted, like life had slowly stolen pieces of me over time. But your love helped me reconnect with myself again. You reminded me of the parts of me that still deserved happiness. You reminded me that being emotionally sensitive is not weakness. You reminded me that healing takes time. You reminded me that broken hearts still deserve love too. And maybe that's why loving you feels so deep to me. Because it never felt superficial, it felt soulful. Like two exhausted hearts finding peace in each other after surviving too many storms alone. I don't think I'll ever fully explain what your presence means to me. Some people enter your life and simply become memories, but some people enter your life and change your entire emotional world forever. You became that person for me, the person who arrived during my darkest season and brought warmth back into my existence. The person who loved me gently while I was still trying to heal, the person who made my soul feel less alone in this world. And every time I think about that, my heart becomes emotional, because not everyone gets lucky enough to experience a love that genuinely heals them. But I did. I experienced it through you, through your patience, through your softness, through your loyalty, through the quiet way you kept choosing me even during moments when I struggled to choose myself. And maybe that's the most beautiful thing anyone has ever. There are some people who enter your life like noise, and then there are people who enter your life like peace. You were peace before you came into my world. I was emotionally exhausted in ways I didn't know how to explain to anyone. I had mastered the art of pretending. Pretending I was okay. Pretending I was strong. Pretending life wasn't quietly destroying parts of me every single day. But deep inside, I was tired. Not physically, soul tired. The kind of tiredness sleep can't fix. The kind that comes from carrying heartbreak, disappointment, loneliness, and silent pain for far too long. I remember waking up every morning already feeling emotionally drained. I stopped looking forward to life. Conversations felt empty. Smiles felt forced. Even happy moments felt temporary because sadness was always waiting for me in the background. And the worst part about emotional pain is that most people never notice it. You can stand in a crowded room while feeling completely alone. You can laugh with people while your heart quietly breaks inside your chest. That was my reality before you. I became someone who survived instead of lived. I stopped opening up because every time I did in the past, I ended up disappointed. So eventually, I built walls around my heart. High walls. Heavy walls. Walls created from betrayal, pain, abandonment, and emotional exhaustion. I convinced myself I didn't need anyone, but the truth is, I was secretly hoping someone would come into my life and finally understand me without making me feel weak for hurting. Then you appeared, and somehow, from the very beginning, your energy felt different. You didn't force yourself into my life. You didn't arrive trying to impress me. You simply cared. Genuinely, softly, batachly, and after spending so much time around temporary people and fake emotions, your sincerity touched my soul immediately. You spoke to me with kindness, during a season where I had forgotten kindness even existed. You listened carefully, you paid attention to little things. You noticed changes in my mood before I even said anything. And honestly, that affected me deeply, because most people only notice what's convenient for them. But, you noticed my pain, too. You cared about the parts of me I tried hardest to hide. I remember moments when I became emotionally distant because my mind was overwhelmed. I thought maybe you'd leave too. I thought eventually you'd become tired of my sadness like others did, but you stayed calm, you stayed patient, you stayed understanding. And slowly, my heart began trusting you. Do you know how rare it is to trust someone after life breaks you enough times? Very rare. Pain changes people, it makes them guarded, it makes them fearful, it makes them expect disappointment, even during beautiful moments. That's what happened to me. I became someone who expected people to leave eventually, so when you kept staying, something inside me slowly started healing. Not instantly, not magically, but gently, like sunlight slowly entering a dark room. Your love never felt loud or performative. It felt safe. And emotional safety is one of the greatest gifts a person can give another human being. You made me feel safe enough to speak honestly about my pain, safe enough to admit when I was struggling, emotionally safe enough to stop pretending all the time. Before you, I carried everything alone. I suffered quietly, 'cause I thought vulnerability made people weak. But then your love taught me something beautiful. Being loved correctly can make even the strongest pain feel lighter. There were nights when my thoughts became too heavy. Nights when overthinking consumed me. Nights when sadness wrapped around my chest so tightly I didn't know how to breathe emotionally anymore. And somehow your voice calmed me down, not because you had perfect solutions, but because your presence reminded me I wasn't alone anymore. Sometimes that's all a hurting soul really needs. Not advice, not lectures. Just someone who stays, someone who listens, someone who loves you gently while you're trying to survive your darkest thoughts. That's who you became for me. You became comfort during chaos. You became warmth during emotional winters. You became the person my soul felt safest with, and honestly, I think part of me started falling in love with you the moment I realized your heart was soft enough to handle mine carefully. 'Cause broken people don't need perfect love, they need patient love, understanding love, consistent love. And you gave me all of that naturally. You never made me feel like I was too much. Even during the moments when my emotions became heavy, you remained gentle with me. That matters more than you know, because when someone spends years feeling emotionally misunderstood, finally, being understood feels life-changing. You saw the sadness hidden behind my smile. You saw exhaustion hidden behind my silence. You saw loneliness hidden behind my strength, and instead of turning away from those broken parts of me, you loved them. Who does that anymore, in a world where people run away the moment things become emotionally difficult? You stayed. That's why your love changed me so deeply, because it wasn't conditional. You didn't only love me during my best moments, you loved me during my weakest ones too. And honestly, I think that saved my soul. There were days when I hated the person I was becoming emotionally. I felt numb, detached, drained by life. I started questioning my worth, questioning whether I deserved happiness at all, but your love slowly rebuilt the parts of me life had destroyed. Piece by piece. You reminded me how to smile genuinely again. You reminded me how to laugh without forcing it. You reminded me that life still held beauty even after pain. And most importantly, you reminded me that I was still worthy of being loved. I think people underestimate how healing reassurance can be, especially for someone who has spent years doubting themselves. Your words reached places inside me nobody else could touch. Simple things you said stayed in my heart for days because they carried sincerity. You made me feel important. Not because of what I achieved, not because of what I could offer, but simply because I was me. That kind of love heals deep wounds. For the first time in a very long time, I stopped feeling emotionally invisible. You made me feel chosen, and trust me, there's something incredibly powerful about being chosen by someone who truly sees your pain and stays anyway. I started changing without even realizing it. Life became softer, music sounded emotional again. The world stopped feeling completely empty. I began noticing beauty in small things, because your love brought warmth back into my soul. You became my peace. In ways words will never fully explain, not temporary happiness, real peace. The kind of peace that quiets anxiety, the kind of peace that calms overthinking, the kind of peace that makes a tired heart finally feel safe enough to rest. Before you, I didn't know love could feel this gentle. I thought love always had to hurt. I thought relationships meant confusion, emotional games, inconsistency, and pain. But you showed me something different. You showed me that real love feels calm, real love communicates, real love stays soft even during difficult moments, real love protects your heart, instead of constantly testing it. And because of you, I started healing from wounds I thought would stay with me forever, not because you fixed me, but because your love gave me strength to believe in myself again. That's the beautiful thing about genuine love. It doesn't control you, it helps you reconnect with yourself, and honestly, I had lost myself long before you entered my life. I became disconnected from my own emotions. I became emotionally cold, because pain convinced me softness was dangerous. But then your tenderness slowly melted those walls. You loved me so gently that eventually my soul stopped fighting against happiness. I started trusting again. Started hoping again. Started dreaming again. And after spending so much time emotionally surviving, hope felt almost unfamiliar. There were moments I looked at you and silently thanked God for allowing our paths to cross. Because you came into my life during the exact season I needed love the most, not superficial love, not temporary attention, but healing love, soulful love, the kind of love that reaches broken places inside a person and quietly helps them breathe again. You became my emotional home. And maybe that sounds dramatic to some people, but anyone who has truly suffered emotionally understands exactly what I mean. Sometimes a person's presence becomes the safest place in your entire world. That's what happened with you. Your voice became comfort. Your energy became peace, your love became healing, and slowly, I stopped feeling so alone inside my own mind. You taught me that vulnerability isn't weakness. That crying doesn't make someone fragile, that emotionally exhausted people still deserve tenderness too. You never judged my pain, you simply held space for it, and honestly, I think that's one of the purest forms of love that exists. Because many people love the happy version of you. Very few people know how to love you when you're emotionally struggling. But you did. You stayed patient with my healing. You stayed gentle with my overthinking. You stayed calm during my emotional storms, and every single time you chose understanding over frustration. Another broken part of me healed quietly. That's why your love changed my life so deeply. Because it reached my soul, not just my heart, my soul, the exhausted part of me that had been silently begging for peace for years. You gave me that peace, not perfectly, not magically, but sincerely. And sincerity means everything nowadays. This world has too many people pretending to care, too many temporary connections, too many empty promises, but your love felt real from the beginning. That's why I trusted it. That's why I fell so deeply for you, because your actions consistently matched your heart. And consistency is one of the most beautiful forms of love. You stayed kind even after seeing my emotional scars. You stayed loving, even after witnessing my struggles. You stayed patient even during moments I became difficult to understand. That's rare, very rare. And I hope you always understand how much that meant to me. Because there were times when your love genuinely kept me going, times when life felt unbearably heavy, times when sadness became overwhelming, times when loneliness consumed me, and then I'd think about you, your smile, your warmth, your heart, and somehow I found enough strength to keep moving forward. That's what soul-changing love does. It gives exhausted people reasons to keep believing in life again. You brought light back into places inside me that had gone dark for years, and no matter how much time passes, I'll never forget that. I'll never forget the way your kindness healed me slowly. I'll never forget the way your patience comforted my anxious heart. I'll never forget the way your love made me feel emotionally safe for the first time in years, because before you, life was breaking me quietly, and then your love arrived and reminded my soul how to live again.